What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
Wait, don't open the door. I got to get dressed.
The door is open.
I have to get
The
dressed.
people are coming. The people are coming.
Oh, sorry. Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome. Come on in.
Come
Single
on.
file, please. Single file. Don't be a fire hazard.
Come on in. Michael, what do you got in that cup?
Yeah, what's in the cup, Michael?
Coffee.
Oh, okay.
My coffee is empty for the day.
I forgot that it's 11 a.m. there, so you can still have coffee.
Yeah. Hey, welcome. Come on in, everyone. Have a seat.
Hi,
your
everyone.
chairs. Say hello to the person next to you.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Sanjay.
Hi, Sanjay. Oh,
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Michael.
It's,
Oh,
Hi,
wrong way.
Richard.
Hi, Michael.
it's
I
like the
feel like
Brady
that-
Bunch.
Brady Bunch. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. Oh, Lisa Peckham says, nice to see all of you together. Hey, you know, it is nice to be all together.
Little does she know.
Little does she know, we haven't
Yeah.
all seen
We're-
each other. None of
we're
it, not
not-
all four of us have seen each other in person in about 3 years. All four together.
That's right.
We've seen it.
Mhm.
And
The
we
odd
aren't all
one.
together there.
Yeah. But
Right.
interestingly enough, we were actually just talking yesterday. There might be an opportunity for all of us to get together in the same room
That's right.
in January
Yeah.
of this year. So we're looking forward to that. Hi, Celia. So
By the
happy
way,
to be back.
Sanjay,
I know we've
Sanjay
missed you,
is at-
Celia, too.
Sanjay is at the police station, so
Yeah.
obviously.
Again.
Yeah, again.
Yeah. And Jeff is at at a secret undisclosed
That's
location.
right. Richard, what's the question of the day?
Yeah. So the question today is, you know, in most parts of North America, fall is well and truly here. So we want to hear from you in the chat box. What is your favorite part about fall? And don't forget to change your to everyone instead of hosts and panelists. But just tell us, what do you like best about the season of autumn?
I know what most people are going to say. Most people are going to say the extra hour of sleep. And as long as we're still doing that, which is
I knew
we're probably gonna
Pumpkin
be
would get
headed-
in here. Yeah. Okay.
Celia.
Stouts and porters. Oh, okay.
Welcome back to Celia, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Good to. I mean, it's
Hey,
been
Michelle.
I think,
Hey,
ever here, but
April.
I'm glad she's back.
Shannon, Nancy.
Yeah, the
Ooh.
food.
Yeah.
Something
Lots
about
of
fall
pumpkin
food.
ciders. Lots of pumpkin
Yeah.
ciders.
Yeah. My
don't-
thing is, I
any
get
of
to
you guys-
wear
any of you guys
clothes that
not
I
like
don't get to
pumpkin?
wear the rest of the year.
Any of you guys not like pumpkin anything?
I
There's-
like pumpkin pretty much everything.
I love pumpkin pie.
Well, I do
Yeah,
like
one of my
pumpkin
favorites.
pie, but otherwise, I don't know. I could stay away
And
from it.
I like smashing pumpkins.
Oh yeah, that's
Jeremy thinks pumpkin anything is gross.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm with you. pretty well.
Yeah.
Hey, so let's get started, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, we need to get started, Richard. That's the.
Oh, that's my cue.
that's
Oh,
the
I'm
cue.
I'm the musician here. Yes, let's get started.
What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
That's my favorite part. That last refrain.
Yeah, me too.
October 19th.
It's always my favorite part when I see Michael hold up his little sign. That's I want one of those.
Can I just say quickly that our friend Michael is just coming out of a bout of COVID. And so I want to say we're so happy that you're here today. And I know that it's caused you a lot of stress, which is a great segue into
Perfect
our
segue.
today.
And we've checked though, just for the folks on the call, don't be concerned. You cannot digitally get COVID. So
No.
Well, they're
Michael
not,
is not contagious through every other Wednesday call. But if you meet him in person and you lick him, there's a high probability you will get COVID.
No face sucking. That's a good safety tip, Sanjay.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Just a good etiquette tip too. I
Public
guess.
service.
be quiet.
Well-
Today's topic, we're going to talk about work-related stress, right? And so I have another question for the chat box, and Richard, you're the chat herder today, so
Yeah.
you can watch the answers. But how do you react to stress? I'm going to ask you three guys, because for me, I hate to say it, I eat. I do. When I'm stressed, I tend to eat. How about you guys?
I
Two
tend to
things.
sleep. I'm a sleeper.
Okay.
You sleep. Usually
Yeah,
people
I-
lose sleep because of stress. You
Yeah,
actually
I know. I
gain
nap.
sleep
I'm a napper.
nap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a-
just to avoid it all, just to avoid the world.
Yeah.
Okay, cocktails and
Yeah.
treadmill for April. Yeah. Seriously, two things. Number one, I shut down,
Yeah.
and my temper. My temper reveals itself. Ask
Yeah.
my wife.
I would
Yeah.
I would say the same, Richard. My patience
Yeah,
very,
I
very
tend to
thin.
flare out, which I don't normally do. I'm usually pretty even keel, but yeah.
In fact,
stress-
admittedly, this morning, I was having some challenges with my patients because I've got a lot on my plate right now.
Wait, I didn't know you were a doctor.
Oh, so where's our, jeez. We need,
Okay.
can we vote Jeff off the island? Is that okay to do?
No.
Trouble with
All
your
right, so I confess that's how, and Sanjay confessed. And Jeff, you eat. Mike, what do you do when you're under stress?
What do I do in terms of
How do you handle stress? Yeah.
How do I handle stress?
Or how do you react to stress? Maybe is the better question.
Yeah, well, just that. I know that I'm very impatient. I become very impatient, and I try to work on that. I mean, I talk about stress management all the time. We all do in different contexts. I talk about the power of humor in de-stressing, but then there are, sometimes when it still becomes a little challenge for all of us, right?
And
I know in terms of
sometimes-
coping with stress, the number one thing that I do and that I try to do and force myself to do is just get outside for a walk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I was wondering how old Carol is, because she's
Don't
obviously,
ask her that.
I'm not asking, but she's obviously not that old, because when you get old like me, you wake up all night anyway, whether you're stressed or not. So then she said only when she's stressed does she wake up. So
And she says her mind whirls around. When you get to be our age, it's something else that
There's another thing that happens to me when I get stressed. Just hang on a sec.
Wow, that is stressful.
you freeze up and you simply become a photograph of yourself.
yeah. Sanjay, what
I think
happens?
we're going to sell.
After Michael goes, I'll explain to you something that's extremely stressful. Did we lose
Wait,
him?
but you got to
No.
see this.
He's
All right.
back. Do you see it, Sanjay?
That's great, Michael.
Yeah.
You look stressed.
Professor Kerr, yeah.
Exactly.
Nice.
Sanjay.
All right. So I'm going to explain to you guys something that's uber stressful. And in fact, though, I have to do a bit of a field trip. So I'm actually going to go off camera as I navigate through this closet, but
Okay.
go with me for a second. This is uber stressful because I want you to know it could happen to any one of you at any given time. So, and keep in mind, as we have virtual meetings and stuff, this is a very, very likely thing.
Back to the Future with Dr. Kerr. Oh,
Whoa.
I have the ability to do this on any meeting.
This is
What?
stressful.
What the heck is happening? Now my hair is
now
up like this
we're
for a different reason.
surprised.
I'm trying.
He
Stop.
can't turn his phone off.
I'm very stressed about this.
Don't play with electrical outlets.
So
Sorry.
even Michael and Richard didn't know.
I didn't. You skunked. Yeah, you skunked it.
You two
Yeah.
are together.
Sanjay and I
Where
are
together?
We're actually in Toronto at an event
That you guys have all spoken at, and we've spoken at.
Exactly.
Right.
And
But we're not getting to speak at it this time. Should we talk about that? No, that's okay.
well, talk about stress. I had to stay at his house with 3 teenage boys.
First of all,
Last
he didn't
night.
have to. He
No,
got
I wanted to.
He
I
got
chose
to.
to. Anyway, glad to be here. I'm glad we get to do this together.
There you
So-
go.
So
Very cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I sent you all an article. We talked about different causes of stress and a survey that was done actually in the UK, but I thought it was really applicable to what we do. And one of the things was that causes of stress at work have to do with relationships, right? Relationships that have gone awry, relationships that are tenuous. So I wanted to speak to that first.
Okay, let me chime in here. It's not only relationships that go badly, but the threat of them going badly. And I mean, the stress actually isn't caused by things that happen. It's caused by our perception of things that will or will not happen. So if you feel that you always have to be dressed up and you put that pressure on yourself and you have a certain level of dressing upness that you need to show up for, you're going to run into stress because you think that I have to operate at this level. And the reality is most people don't really care. People are happy to see you and they don't care if you're wearing black slacks or navy blues. And so I think that most of the stress that we deal with in day to day is self-induced because of a perception of we think that things might go yucky or awry.
Yeah, it's our 100% of this. This is what is such a challenge. And what even frustrates me at an intellectual level when I get stressed out and impatient, because I know, and I talk about this, 100% of our stress is our interpretation of the things that happen to us around us. It is not the events, the things themselves that cause stress. It is how we interpret the things that cause stress to us is the sole source of stress. Now, if only we could all remember that,
Right. Yeah.
and embody that and choose a different response instead of reacting in the moment, that would go a long way towards.
Let me throw something out there and see what you and the folks on the call think. I think it's that, but I think it's our concern about what others will think about us, and that's what causes us stress. So your example of not showing up in the right clothes, it's because of the way they're going to react to us. If it's that we have a whole bunch of things to do, if the things don't get done, life will go on, but others will think less of us if those things don't happen. Don't you think that's part of it?
Sure,
Is
it's
that
what
we worry about how others are going to respond and how they're going to think about us.
100%. And when we go internal, our stress level tends to decrease. So when we stop caring, and it's not about not caring, it's about being truly content with where you are and who you are, then you care much less if someone goes, oh, your socks don't match your shoes or whatever. But going back to that idea of our perception and our interpretation of the event, it reminds me, I always use dad analogies, but Xander, my eldest, when he was first learning to walk, he was roughly the size of a tree that we had in the house. And he would walk over, sorry, not the tree, just the pot of the tree was his size. So he'd walk over and kind of wobble, and he'd get to the edge of the pot and he would start eating the dirt. Now, in all the parenting magazines I've ever read, apparently you're not supposed to let your children eat dirt. So in my infinite wisdom, I took this tree and I stuffed it in a corner of the room. And I put a couch along one side, and I took this, what we used to call car mountain, and I wedged it between the couch and the other wall so that he would see the tree and start waddling over going, dessert. And he'd get there and he'd get distracted and he'd play with the cars. And I'm thinking, I'm so smart. I'm father of the year, give me a medal. Except 6 months later, I walk into the room. He's a little bigger, a little stronger, and he's physically capable now. He's actually perched on top of Car Mountain, where he's eating the dirt, but he's now able to reach the leaves, and he's eating the leaves too. and he reminded me that
Gotta be a point here.
Yeah, there is. I swear there's a point. And he reminded me of this fundamental lesson of the very things that serve as roadblocks at one point in our lives, with the right interpretation, the right understanding, the right development, will be stepping stones as others.
Yeah.
So all those things that tend to stress us out can actually serve as a stressor or as a stepping stone. And the only difference is it's not the event, it's the interpretation of the event.
By the way, I had breakfast with Xander this morning. There's little green things growing out of his ears now. So. But I will say,
Now, but let's stop on this point, because a couple of things in the chat are pertinent to that. And Carol says, one of my work colleagues used to say, my life is filled with terrible tragedies, most of which never occurred. Now that I think that's channeling something from Mark Twain.
yeah, it is from Mark Twain. I was going to say that.
Okay, yeah, but it's absolutely true. Yeah, what is he? He says, I'm an old man now, and I've seen a lot of problems, most of which never occurred, or something like that. Yeah. And then Michelle said, and this, boy, Michelle, I can relate to this so well. Michelle says, worry about calling a customer who is unhappy with our service is always worse than in my head before I call than the actual call.
Yeah, the anticipation, right, of having a difficult conversation with your boss, a customer, a colleague is always worse. We build it up into this imaginary thing. I call that sometimes.
How can we benefit from knowing that?
I call that pre-stress sometimes, right? Because it's pre-stress. Wait until there's actually a thing happening, and then maybe we can talk about how to.
But on the other hand, some of you know George Morrison. Was a speaker. He actually used to build himself as the world's worst motivational speaker, right? And he
George Campbell.
Well, George Campbell. Sorry, you're right. As long as you set your expectations really low, you're never disappointed. So it's the same thing. I think that we kind of prejudge what's going to happen versus being in the moment. All right. So another stressor is that people said in the workplace that they don't receive enough support. Enough information. We've talked about this before. What do you think? How do you get past that?
Well, I think what we could do is we could start a call called Every Other Wednesday.
Right.
and
That'd be a great idea.
yeah, and then educate people on the idea of how having a healthy culture allows people to feel that they're more supported,
Right,
and we
right.
can do that financially and socially.
I like
and
that.
yeah,
I like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
but that's really what we do talk about,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It
But
is.
how are we defining support, Jeff?
Well, that's it. I don't know. It's kind of up in the air. They didn't define it, so we're going
Well,
to.
And so on that note, I think what we do, if we're talking about healthy teams, healthy workplaces and effective leaders, we need to know that we do need to reach out intentionally and ask people on a regular basis, do you need support? What can I do to support you? What can I start doing that would make your job easier? What can I stop doing that would make your job or this situation easier? And we need to always ask, what does support look like for you? Because support means different things to different people. People need different amounts of support and different types of support.
Michael, you bring up a great point, and I want to share that,
I
you
know.
know, now that I'm taking organizations, and Richard does this too, now that we're taking organizations through, you know, a longer customer or patient experience initiative, one of the things that we suggest is have a daily huddle. And, you know, or what taken from a healthcare background, rounding. You know, doctors round, they go to, you know what that means? They go to a patient's room and they check to see how they're doing. Well, I think that managers and leaders should do the same thing and have that exact discussion.
Hold on.
One-on-one, what can I do for you? How, you know, how can I help you? How can I make your job easier?
When you say rounding, you're talking about like doing the round. I was hoping you were talking about numbers and rounding up.
No,
I
that's
was
you.
getting
I know.
excited.
Right.
That's you. Yeah.
Nothing to do with stats.
Oh,
and
Yeah. No, you know, I mean,
get your
the
get your
concept
nerd
of-
hat off, buddy. Get your nerd hat off.
what does it say? Not all math.
Math
Puns
are
puns are
terrible,
terrible,
just
just
Thank you.
some. Oh,
Thank you. Don't take off anything else, Sanjay.
Don't encourage him. Don't.
He has
Well,
an
and I like-
he has an
I've spoken-
advocates imprinted on his chest. So
I've spoken about this huddle that I know one company does where their team comes together, and it's not a morning huddle really, but they do this ritual every morning to kind of check in with one another, and I love it. It's dirt simple, and I know I've talked about this before, but all they do, team of about, I don't know, 15 people, they stand up and everyone yells out how they're doing on a scale of 1 to 10. Lots of engineers, Sanjay, so they use decimal points. So they go around the room and they identify who the weakest number is. So somebody might inevitably say, you know, I'm a 2 today, right? And they do that so they know who the heck to stay away from.
Stay away from. Yeah.
No, of course they do that to say, okay, we need to support Susan. Susan, what's going on? Why are you 2? Everybody, let's all hands on deck. Let's help Susan. What do you need?
I just want you to know
That's-
that right now I'm currently a 3 pi.
A 3 pi?
3 pi.
don't ask me.
About
Times
9.5.
pi.
About 9.5.
Yeah. Wow. Great.
Oh, excellent.
I think the other thing that my suggestion and what I've seen from experience, it's not just asking the questions, it's truly listening to people. And I think, yes, the huddle's a good idea. And I went there, but I didn't really mean huddle. I meant rounding. The huddle's a good idea because it's a stand-up kind of group thing, however it is. But we can't forget that one-to-one interaction and even making it personal. You know, I know your mom was in the hospital. How's she doing? It's those kinds of questions that creates the connection, I think, that we're talking about, and relieves the stress, lets people talk.
And to add to your point, Jeff, it's the idea of, it's not making a list, mothers in the hospital,
Right,
follow up.
right.
It's when you truly listen, you just actually know that stuff. You go, hey,
You know it. Yeah. Yeah. You're paying attention.
yeah, that's legitimately being truly present and truly curious about the whole being
Mhm.
of the person and actually wanting to find out. And you don't actually have to make lists, and you don't actually have to write it down. You just truly know. Like when you're chatting with your bestie, you don't make a list after the conversation and then follow up with them the next day going, how did the job interview go? You know that they had a job review.
Know that, yeah.
They were excited about it. So you can just follow up.
Right.
Yeah. Let's go back to the chat. Celia brings up that she sometimes has to fire people, and that is one of the most stressful parts of her job. It really, really is. I've always said, you know, and as Celia says, we do a good job of prepping them with conversations prior to that. Of course, you must do that. She says one person actually thanked me for how we handled it. You know, I've always said, number one, it should never be a big surprise to someone if they're fired. But also that if you get to where you enjoy doing that, you know, if you get to where it's not stressful and it's not really painful for you, you should probably find something else to do. Because I think that that's a natural part of how we should, as good leaders, respond.
I'm
Sanjay,
sure
I can see you have
that-
something that you are dying to say.
I'm not dying to say it, but I'm sure we've all had that experience where we've worked with an organization where they've let someone go, and that one of those individuals come back and said, "Thank you. You letting me go allowed me to go on."
Oh
this
yeah, yeah, you freed me up to do something.
But again, that's the perception of the event. It's not the event. Being fired is not
Right.
bad. Doing the firing is not bad. Is are we releasing the person? And usually people are fired because they're a lack of fit. It's not they're a bad person. But again, people take it on themselves to interpret it that way, going, "Oh, they rejected me," and then that stresses them out.
Yeah.
Whereas if they look at it as, "Hey, you know what? Sally is a heck of a lot better fit than I was. I get it. Now it gives me and opens up the opportunity for me to go and do something here where I
Mhm.
like it more and I can create more value for the organization and for the customers."
I've only been fired once, but that's exactly what my boss said. I'm freeing you to explore a new opportunity. It's the way he said
Yeah.
it. I love
I'm-
that.
I'm releasing you into the wild, Jeff.
Right.
What?
I'm releasing you into the wild.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just using that as an example. We're not actually doing that, Jeff.
Jeff was
Stephen-
self-employed at the time.
That's the scary part.
In the mirror. it was-
Stephen always had such wisdom to share with us. And he says, yeah, start a meeting with a quick check on something personal to tone down the stress. Like, how was your Thanksgiving last week, Canadians? You know, so since
yes, and you
Yes,
still
and.
have to- it doesn't take the place of those one-to-one
right.
conversations. And I want to really stress that.
Right. I think what we're saying here is communication
Yeah.
can help so many things. Now,
There-
I'm
there's,
gonna
I,
say-
can I, sorry, I was going to jump in with just a tangential topic related to this too, and that's the topic of what I call secondhand stress, just like secondhand smoke, right? And I think we have to beware if we want to create a supportive environment for our team, we want to create psychological safety, all that good stuff we talk about. We have to be aware of how our behaviors can infect other people's stress levels and cause their stress to rise, and often inadvertently, right? So when we're doing things like we're really rushed and we're showing that we're rushed, that will raise the temperature in a room often,
Mhm.
right? People see that you're physically tense, you're rushing, you're hurrying things, you're not really present. Any of those simple little behaviors that sort of send stress signals out from ourselves will send secondhand stress onto other people. And then everybody starts to get a little more stressed.
My favorite saying, and you all know it, right? Everybody brings sunshine to a room, some when they enter and some when they leave.
When they
Yeah,
leave,
right. Yeah.
But you also get emotional spillover, right? And so if I'm stressed about something at work and my kids go and they ask me 4 times to go play basketball, I'm more likely to snap at them,
Yeah.
which is it's totally unfair because them asking me to play basketball has nothing to do with, I'm not stressed in that moment. I'm stressed by this. And because I haven't resolved that, I'm on edge. You know, and so that emotional spillover we need to really be aware of.
Yeah.
But it also happens on the other side too. When things are going really well, you know, we tend to say yes and everything, and let's sing Kumbaya and hug. And what we want to be is more regulated. We want to have the peaks be lower and the valleys be higher, and be more in that stability of emotional bandwidth.
Don't you think that, yes, I agree with all of that. Don't you think a lot of stress really comes from simply having too much to do?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
right now
can you
in this
relate,
moment
Mike?
in my life, you folks know this. That is definitely the case sometimes.
Just hit the nail on the head, right? That's when I tend to have more stress. I mean, I worry about all of these things that we've all talked about. And when I have literally too many tasks, too many things to accomplish in too short a period of time, that brings on a huge amount of stress. And I wonder if Lisa says yes, and she's shouted yes
Yeah.
in all capital letters. I wonder, if we were able to bring some relief to that situation, would that be an overall stress reliever?
Hold on, it depends on your interpretation of the events.
Yeah.
Because what happens if you have to open up 10,000 envelopes with $100,000 in each one? Would that stress you? Because that's a lot of work. You know what I'm saying? Is if it's
Yeah.
things you don't want to do, it's stressful. But if it's your favorite show is just come out with a new season and you're booked to
Binge
binge
watch.
watch, then it's not stressful. It's relaxing. They say the only difference between stress and excitement physiologically, I've heard that your body produces the exact same chemicals if you get the butterflies, and the only difference is the interpretation. So yeah, I mean, we do tend to bite off more than we can chew in general. And when we have that to-do list, it's too long. But if it's a to-do list of things we don't want to do or we're not looking forward to, that's going to stress us out a lot more than, all right, I get to do it rather than I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that mean that it's directly tied in a way to time management? That
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can't, you know, we have to manage our time. I think what you're missing there is I have so much to do and so little time to do it. That's stressful.
Yeah.
That's,
I think
that's what
we're
the
worried-
stressor is. Yeah.
Again, I'm going to go back to,
Carol talks about, you know, the importance of saying no, right? And one thing I always say is we all have to do a better job at saying no,
no, we don't.
no, yes, yes, we do. Saying no so that we can say yes to the things that
Yeah,
really
okay.
matter.
Well,
So saying no to those things that are not a priority, and it speaks to everything, Jeff. Like, yeah, your point. It's prioritizing,
Yeah.
it's goal setting. From a cultural point of view, this can be systemic, though, because if you're working in a culture where the expectations are unrealistic, where they aren't staffing at a proper level that they should be, where they aren't accounting for people going on holidays or being sick, and none of those factors are accounted for, and the workload becomes onerous and the expectations that people are still going to do this, then of
Yeah.
course that's going to be a huge source of stress.
Right.
I think that the
And-
time management piece can't be understated. And
Right.
for people that are familiar with the Covey 4-quadrant model, the
Mhm.
urgent, important stuff, basically what he says is when things end up in quadrant 1, and those are urgent, important activities, when they end up in quadrant 1, it's primarily, and he calls that the procrastination quadrant. It's
Right.
because you procrastinated things that they become an emergency. And it reminds me, I had a student rental years ago in Guelph, Ontario, and Owen was responsible for shoveling the driveway. And he was the student that was living in the house. And it rained one day it snowed one day, and he kind of got lazy and didn't bother doing it. And then it was one of these, it snowed and then it like rained and then it froze. And so he was going to get his car out one day to drive somewhere. And he realized that the ice had frozen the car to the driveway. And so he's freaking out. What would have taken him 25 minutes to shovel the driveway, he's now heating up kettles of water and pouring them on the wheels to melt the ice because he has an appointment. And so what would have taken him 25 minutes in a proactive quadrant 2, non-urgent, important activity ended up being a quadrant 1, highly stressful activity. And it took him 2.5 hours because of lack of time management.
Yeah, but don't you think that often we don't have the leisure of putting it in one of those quadrants? It's our boss coming to us and saying, this has to be done now. So it's laid on us as well, as good a time managers as we can be.
There
Yeah,
is,
I still go back to that. So much of this, you're convincing me more and more in this discussion. So much of this has to do with, how are we going to think that somebody else is going to think about, are we going to disappoint our boss? Is our
Right.
boss are we going to lose our job? Then are we going to disappoint our family and things like that? Going back to the time management, Lynn's made a really, I think, insightful comment here when she says, for me, the reason I'm saying it's insightful is because I can relate. And she says, for me, some of the stress comes from having things stay in my mind instead of having a good system for parking them until I really need to think about them. That is so true. If you
Yeah.
can, so, I mean, I will wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh, I was supposed to do this. And I'll simply email myself.
Yeah.
And then I can go back to sleep because I know when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to see that and I know to do it.
Yeah.
But if I don't have a place to, as Lynn says, park it, then I'm constantly thinking about it. So that is a super great idea.
And Richard, on that note, I'm
Yeah.
a big fan. And one thing I try to do in my business practice, even at the end of every workday, when I'm making that divide between work
Mhm.
and personal life,
Yeah.
is
Oh,
to
you do that? Oh, okay. Let's talk
spend
about how let's
I'm
talk
trying to
about
do
that
it.
sometime, Mike. I need to get some tips from you.
Yeah, well, I need to get some tips from myself as well.
By the way,
Setting aside 5 minutes, even just 5 minutes to end your day properly, to
Yeah.
set the course for the next morning.
Yeah.
So you get some of those stressors hopefully off you, even if it's sitting down and just, writing your list of things you want to get to tomorrow morning. So you're not going to think about it, and doing something
right,
to
yeah.
give you a little bit of closure on the day.
By the way, that's what this idea of letting go, that's what the practice of meditation is about. I mean, the simplest form of meditation is trying to clear your mind of thinking about nothing. Not, I have to do this and I have to follow up this and I have to that and I haven't done this and I should do that. It's literally like letting it go.
Yeah.
There's one type of practice, it's called nitty or something, and it just means nothingness. And that's actually what you're trying to do. You're sitting and just trying to forget everything. And then one of the ways that you do that is to focus on your breath, because that's even that's more than what you want to be doing. You want to just release it all.
I think we can have what I call Richard days. And I just named it that right now, Richard.
Okay, and what does that mean?
When we got on today, not publicly, but together as a group, the first thing you said was what? Do you remember?
Hey, guys.
That EOW is the only thing that I've done today so far that I planned on doing.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
So it speaks to all of this. Like, why didn't you plan this better last night?
Well, I did, but it's what I call, and it's a military term. I call it incomings. I'm starting out the day, and then a barrage of things comes in, and it's mostly email, but sometimes it's phone, and sometimes it's all these things that I didn't plan to do that I think I have to do. And in fact, as I evaluate this, I could have said no to many of those things.
Yeah.
And said, no, you're not on the schedule. Let's get you on the schedule, but you're not on the schedule.
It comes down to prioritizing, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and then we tend to, those things come at us. We tend to do the things that bring us joy, like maybe one's going to make me money, or you know, maybe one's going to make my family happy, whatever it is. And so I set aside the hard chore I was doing, you know, because I want to do that one. Because so it really is prioritizing and sticking to it, I think.
Yeah.
Too.
You know what I love is in terms of responding to any of these things we're talking about, responding to being overwhelmed with incoming non-priority things, to being stressed out in the morning. I love Brené Brown's 2 dirt simple questions, and I talk about these all the time, and I'm trying to use them myself all the time. And it's brilliant and so simple. But the first question is, when something bad happens to you, just take a moment and ask this question. Do I have enough information yet to freak out? And 99% of the time, of course we don't, right? We make assumptions, we fill in the blanks, we listen to a rumor, and it becomes this huge thing, and we don't have enough information to know that this is going to be a horrible event. And then the second question is, of course, will freaking out help? And when in the history of your lives, gentlemen, or anyone in the chat, when has freaking out actually helped you make a situation better? I would love to hear.
Probably only if the building is on fire.
Perhaps,
that may be the only.
Then freaking out would help a little. Yes.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the rocking chair test, right? When we get stressed out, you go, all right, I'm 95 years old, sitting in my rocking chair. Is that this particular instance, this particular scenario, or the stressor, is it really going to make a big impact to me then? And 99% of the time, it's not. It's like, rock on.
You know, we're here on EOW, we're all about giving practical tips. And since the 4 of us know very little, we rely on our audience, and they really have some great stuff here. So let's look at, so Celia says, and Celia, I'm going to ask for a little clarification on this. As a working mom, Plan B was a total stress reliever for me many times. Kids don't need perfection. They need and want presence. Plan B was such a stress reliever. By that, Celia, you just mean coming up with something that'll work, but not necessarily what we originally conceived of? And if so, I mean, I think that gets to our tendency toward perfectionism. And we know that perfectionism creates a great deal of undue stress. And one of my favorite phrases, and I know it's not original to him, but my friend Tim Richardson, and Jeff, I know you know Tim, he taught me many years ago, Richard, done is better than perfect.
Right.
Oh, I so often, I have tribute that to so many, to extending my life as long as it has, because I think I'd have keeled over long before that if I didn't remember that. So yeah, so so Celia says, yeah, the most incredible birthday parties for kids. And Celia, I can imagine you threw some incredible birthday parties for those kids. But yeah, not having to do that, because I think to Celia's point, her 3 kids would have just appreciated, and probably did appreciate, just a party rather than the party that Celia might have envisioned in her head. So sometimes saying, we don't really need to we need to hold ourselves to high standards, but we don't need to do it at the level. Done is better than perfect. We don't need to be OCD about it. We don't need to be perfectionist about it.
So the last thing then, before, I know we're running out of time, but so the last thing I want to bring up, and it has to do with exactly what you're saying, Richard, is that sense of loss of control. I don't have control over my work. I don't have control over my schedule on a given day. People keep showing up at my door, and I've got to talk to them, kind of interruptions. How do we get past that? I like to say, a lot of, like I say, I need to be in control. I've learned that I need to say, I prefer to be in control. That mindset alone has changed things for me. I do prefer to be in control, but I realize I can't always be in control. I'm curious how you guys look at that.
Well, I simple. I wake up at 4 a.m. and I get my work done.
Yeah.
No one ever bugs me.
I can attest to this. This morning, he is putzing around at 4 a.m. and I'm trying to get some sleep, but
What a
anyway.
jerk. What a jerky
know.
roommate, Jeff. My
I know.
God, I'm so sorry you have to put up with that
And
guy.
you know what?
Oh,
I have
God.
no stress that it
Oh.
bugs you. See, I don't care what you think.
Bite me.
So are you saying,
what
Jeff,
were we
what do we
talking
do when-
about?
We're
what
talking
do you
about
do
that
when
sense of
people,
need to
like if someone
control.
shows up at our office and we're trying to get something done and somebody shows up?
There's an
Is that-
earthquake here.
Somebody sent me a photo a while ago of a guy working in a cubicle in an open office space, and he had just a big white sheet of paper taped to the back of his shirt, and it said, "I'm working on a deadline project. Please don't interrupt me. I have no self-control, and I'll never get this done." So I
like
think
that.
sometimes, we need to be proactive and
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, as soon as we're finished today, I need to turn off my phone and undo my Outlook so that I do not get any emails for the night. I need about a 2-hour period with no emails.
there you
Right.
go. Yeah.
Okay, my wife knows how to get in touch with me otherwise. So yeah, all right, we're good.
Yeah.
Other resources that are,
I think, sorry, I was gonna say, to me, it's the core is mindset.
Yeah.
Is if you believe you're in control, you will find out ways to be in control somewhat. And if you believe you are not in control, you will find out ways to be a victim.
Hey, and while we have time, I got to give a plug for one of my favorite topics, gentlemen. We know that humor is one of the most powerful stress busters.
I knew we were going there.
I
Well,
knew.
We
45
have to go there, for goodness
it's
sake.
so funny you say that.
Humor relaxes us physically. In fact, studies show it relaxes our bodies faster than Valium or vodka. It relaxes our muscles where we pick up tension. When we laugh, I'm talking about when we laugh. We know that it even if it's just for a minute, it shifts our thinking about something that stresses us out and our emotional context in that situation. We can use humor to reward ourselves in a fun way. So for example, there's, one of my clients, they do, because this is a stressor for their frontline employees, they give out a prize at the end of the week to whoever had to deal with the biggest jerk coming into their store, because that was a big source of stress for them. Now that they get rewarded for that, it's no longer a stress. They look forward to it. So we can reward ourselves in fun ways. And then we know that humor, and some psychologists actually claim that they think humor is one of the most powerful stress busters available to us for this reason. Back to Sanjay talking about mindset and our interpretation of things, humor can help us reframe the things that are happening to us, so we can look at them through a comedic lens, through a funny lens, and it gives us that control of our response and puts us in the driver's seat when it comes to our emotions and our response to things. Instead of reacting in the moment with our reptilian brain, we take a moment, we take a beat to respond and figure out how we can respond in a funny, humorous way.
I'm sure you have many, Michael, but I belong to a Facebook group called Just for Laughs. And I'm telling you that when I am stressed, I go there, like you said, for 2 minutes. And I just see what the latest thing is somebody posted, get a good laugh, and then I feel like I'm ready to tackle whatever it is.
Yeah.
And speaking of reptilian, what I do is I like to think back on the pictures I've seen of Sanjay doing his reptile face. That makes me laugh. Could you do it for us again?
There you go. Oh, that's
We only have 8 minutes, but listen, we've got some very good practical suggestions from our audience. Let me just summarize those real quickly, and then we'll go on. So Lynn is recommending a book, Getting Things Done by David Allen. Stephen Rayfield has given us a link to that from Amazon Canada. So keep that in mind, US folks. And Lynn is also saying sometimes just doing a mind sweep. And I can totally relate to that. There'll be sometimes when I think I'm so stressed, I'm so worried, I've got so much to do. If I do that mind sweep, I find I really don't have as much as I thought I did, and I can stop worrying. And then the last thing that I want to bring up is, okay, so Michelle is saying that she went to a course the other day and they gave us a free resource link, which is psychologicallysafeleader.com. And there is a link in the chat, psychologicallysafeleader.com.
Very good.
And Rob, thank you for your kind words and for everybody for being here, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. So thank you. Yes, great.
By the way, talking about stressors, I'm really stressed about the fact that body language says a lot. And he keeps turning his back to me more and more. I'm not sure if that means anything, guys.
Yeah, we'll make that the next topic, Jeff. Obviously.
I've been trying to get in my smart ass remark here for like 5 minutes.
Please
because
do.
It started off like it's a backhanded compliment. I was going to say, you know, Michael is so dedicated to humor that he actually partook in the Valium and vodka studies to make sure that humor was just.
I did.
But
It was.
that's part
it was
of
lost.
I know.
That was a challenging 3 years, Sanjay, but I was committed.
I did want to say this. So this idea of passage of time is a great way of de-stressing.
Yeah.
When the further we move away from an event, and that's why sometimes people will suggest things like bury yourself in work, go to Vegas, go on vacation, because the idea is to distract your mind, hopefully in a healthy way, from the pain or the stress, because very often it will resolve itself over time.
Yeah.
It's going to heal anyway. Yeah.
Well, and Sanjay, that's a good point too, because another great question to ask all the time, again, easier said than done, I know, but when some event happens to us, just asking the question, is this really going to matter a month from now?
Yeah.
Is this going to matter a year from now? And 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, no, it's not going to matter a year from now. It's going to be long forgotten.
So let's spend the last 4 or 5 minutes just talking about how do we recognize signs of stress in our coworkers, like to the point where it's serious. We need to do something about it. What have you seen, guys?
Personality changes.
Okay,
Yeah. Anytime we see something, oh, that's not you.
right.
Yeah, well, and on that note, Richard, I mean, I remember working in this very high stress, soul sucking, fun sucking work environment, and it was the absence of humor that was often the red flag, the canary in the mine, when people were starting to lose their sense of humor, who used to always have a really good sense of humor.
Yeah, and that's what I would agree. It's when you're looking for subtle or obvious changes. So someone who is normally fun or upbeat, and by the way, it can go the other way around. If someone is really quiet and shy, and then they become manic and all like, oh, we gotta do this, we gotta do this. Just any sort of shift, one way or another, up or down the scale, and sudden and extreme.
Yeah.
I mean, not a little incrementally. If people go, hey, I want to get more humor in my life, and they're starting to tell some puns, that's one thing. But big shifts that are different.
Yeah, I remember years ago when I was a manager, one of the very practical ways is that their work is different too. Their output is different, or not as it's not the quality that you're used to from them, or it's not as they're not as productive. You got to look for, I think, for those little signs. And if you're big enough organizations and have an SAP where you can help them with get them
EAP.
EAP.
Yeah.
SAP is something else. Yeah.
And then sometimes the signs are really obvious, like when they throw a computer through the window, for example. That could be a red flag that something's going on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good point.
No, to your point, Jeff, and it also bring the last comment here from Lynn, suggestion to start meeting, just people ask what's on their mind, and sometimes it gives you a chance to share, and where people, I love this, Lynn, where people need some grace. And I think
That's
I think
awesome. I
probably
love that. I love that.
Yeah. And I think one of the best ways to relieve stress is to give ourselves some grace. That probably would go a long way.
Yeah. Will and grace is a good.
Will, yeah, I need more will and I need more grace.
When there's a will, there's a grace.
There you
I
go.
believe somebody
Right.
once said.
So
What we didn't do this time, guys? We never introduced ourselves. Do we need to? Are we all family here? We're all friends. We all know.
I
each
know
other?
who you people are.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me
Okay.
a couple closing things, if I can.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to apologize to our viewers because 2 weeks ago I promised that we were going to have an amazing guest today on stress, and unfortunately her flights were changed and she had to jump on an airplane.
And she was stressed about it.
I thought you were gonna say, Jeff, she couldn't make it because she was just too stressed.
Yes, yeah. I will say I showed Sanjay an email from her today, and she actually promised me a latte in
A sorry latte.
a
they're
sorry
called.
latte. I
A
guess.
latte? Whoa. If you're getting a latte, there needs to be latte rounds for everybody on the call
think-
today and us.
Bribes are welcome. So I just want to say we will have her back on, Dr. Deborah Gilboa, Dr. G, and who has been on Good Morning America, the Today Show. She's been on recently on all these shows. So I'm excited. We will have her back. I also want to say that Sanjay just may show up in Jacksonville or Canmore, Alberta. So just, lock your doors.
Keep in mind, I will come to the viewers. If you be on your toes, especially for virtual meetings, make sure you're wearing pants, please, for God's sake.
Yeah. But seriously, it's going to be really cool. I think in January, we might be, even if it's pre-recorded, we might be able to have all four of us in the same room.
Well, we'll see.
VOW. That would be fun.
That's right.
Well, folks, our time is up. Parting words, my friends.
Our next meeting. When's the
Well,
next?
it's 14 days from today, which would be the 33rd, October the 33rd.
October 31st, exactly.
Yeah, is that November the 2nd?
November
November
2nd.
2nd. Great. Okay, good.
Square.
Yeah, I hope I can be there. Certainly some of us will be here. Hey,
Yeah.
Mike said that, or maybe it was Sanjay, one of you said, you like the little stinger at the end of the music. So I think we should close with
Mike or Sanjay. That his name's
yeah, okay. We're gonna close with that little stinger. Anything else, guys?
nothing.
Thanks,
Have
folks.
a
Okay.
couple weeks
Thank you,
of-
everyone, for
See
showing
you
up
in
as
2 weeks.
always.
See you every other Wednesday.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. We didn't hear it.
Oh no, sorry. Well, I did.
Oh,
No, it's area.
Okay, you'll just have to imagine it.
such
Bye.
a letdown.
Wow.
Now I'm stressed. I am so stressed now. God,
Bye, everyone.
all
Bye.
that work ruined.
Your hair
Bye.
Your hair looks great.
Thank you.
My hair?
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Oh, I thought you were talking about mine. There's this one piece that won't stay
It's
down.
beautiful.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, all.